Anyways, in US, I know like this is what again most of my knowledge comes from movies, and sometimes I even hear people talk.
Basically American Ragu. Your knowledge has to be half from here,
Half from here,
half
from
from
here.
movies.
Yeah, probably. People move out of their house at 17 or 18 here, right?
Yeah.
And then they try to have their own life, and then they carry on with their own life. So here in US, the way the kids look at their parents or look after their parents is completely different than in India, right? I always lived with parents. Like if I was in India, I would have 32 years old, I would have still been living
Yeah.
with my mom and dad and stuff. It's not a big thing.
Mhm.
It's like kind of weird if I don't live, right? If I say no, I want my own space. I'm single and I want my own space. It's kind of weird. Um, so my relationship with my parent is different versus someone who's here. So how is your relationship with your parents?
So I felt really like an outlier because I lived with my parents for undergrad. Like when everyone else was like ready to get out of the house and go to college, I was like, no, I don't I don't want to do that. Like I just want to live at home. And so I stayed for undergrad at my parents' house. But then when it came to like the part that really like wanted pushed me to leave at first was the topic of like arranged marriages. So back then I wasn't in a relationship. So when that topic came, like that was where I was like the Americanized side of me was like, no, 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 like that's not happening. I was like, okay, time for me to leave the house. And
So arranged marriage instigated you to leave the
that, that honestly was my trigger to like, okay, you need to go live out on your own, figure out what you're doing, and uh start like I've never lived by myself before, right? So I was like, this is the push to do it. And then I feel like for like American people, it was like completely different. But like I see that there's a lot of like loneliness here compared to India. But you can be lonely in a group of like a group of people too. So it's very confusing for me to like like I've seen both lifestyles. I'm like, which one is better? Like I always ask myself that because maybe I potentially want to move back, right? So I always like question like what are things that are better here? What are things that are better there? But people leave the house and then they don't like they get married and then they move out and they see some people see their parents like a lot, which I see is very rare, but a lot of people like they visit their parents like twice a year or a few and it's not even because they're so far away. It's because they just like that's how the relationship is. Like for Thanksgiving and Christmas we'll see each other. And they like to lead that private life. And even on the show I saw like having your mother-in-law live in the same house with you is like so absurd. Like
Yeah.
1 or 2 weeks, like that's like the max that is like acceptable. After that, it's just like you're overreaching. Like that's and that is so different in India where you could
Right.
just any time is welcome, you know?
Right, right. I mean, in India, like if you go traditional Indian route, like the girl comes into the house and she lives with the mother-in-law, like and
Yeah.
the son and the like her husband, her mom,
Mhm.
like stuff, right? It's a pretty common thing there.
I don't know. I have very mixed feelings about it. I, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I always like for me it always is very interesting to learn about different cultures, and like I'll tell you an example. I think I've told an example of like um when I was at my very very good friend's place when I was in college. I used to go to his house like for Thanksgiving or any long weekends. He was very kind enough to take me to his house, and his parents loved me. I loved his parents. I used to cook them good Indian meals and I served them food. And one of the days we were sitting on the dining table, and then they were asking about Indian culture, and they were trying to learn from me and stuff. So they're like, okay, say you get married in India,
Yeah.
and what happens to the girl? I'm like, "Yeah, she'll come and live with me." She's like, "Where will you be living?" I'm like, "I'll be living with my parents." He's like, "Why will you be living with your parents?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"My parents are old. I have to look after them."
Yeah.
He's like, "Are they that old that they cannot do anything?" I'm like, "No, but still, it's like, for me, it's a thing, like where you live. If I go to India, I'm going to live with my parents. I'm not going to live alone." So then he asked, "Oh, if you get married, your wife will come." Yeah, I'm like, "All of us will live together." So the dad, he was trying to be funny, but he literally got a gun, put it on thing. He's like, this man is good, but don't learn that aspect from this guy. He was trying to be funny,
Yeah.
but he was like kind of serious too. He's like, no, Cameron, if you get married,
Yeah.
you're gonna have your wife and separate.
Separate.
Yeah, yeah. We love you, but we don't want you in here.
Yeah.
It's I felt like that's such a huge difference, like in culture. Like I don't know what is right or wrong. There's nothing right or wrong. I believe it's just like the way we grow up.
Mhm.
I feel like most of the decisions or whatever we go through in life or whatever we say or whatever we tend to do in life is mostly comes from our previous experiences and the way that we are brought up in what culture that we are brought
Mm,
up in.
I definitely agree. It's like the parents don't want it and the kids don't want to hear it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right.